Hey everybody, I'm Meredith Baker for On the Map Off the Radar, and I'm here at Harvard University with Colette Bishogo, who is a senior in African Studies, and she's going to be talking to us about government accountability, comparing the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda. She's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and she was just back there and in Rwanda this summer to do her research. Thank you so much for being with us.
No problem.
So could you go ahead and tell us why you chose the DRC and Rwanda to look at government accountability and what exactly you're looking at in each country?
Yeah, I chose the DRC and Rwanda because those two countries have such a history that is interlinked, you know, and they, if you look like 20 years ago, like 15 years ago, they both are coming from a similar history, like which is that they were they experienced war on either side. So that
the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda.
Yes, with the genocide, but also the effects of the genocide was that the war in Rwanda spilled into the Congo as well. So, and that will be like the first Congo War and the second Congo War that occurred in the late 90s up to the early 2000s. So that is just the history that the two countries have in common. And sorry,
that's okay.
I was looking at two cities, one in Rwanda and one in Congo, and these two cities share a border. And the reason why I was so interested in these two cities is that they have sort of a similar history. Both cities spoke the same language, so when I was in Rwanda, I actually did not even need to know any Rwandan languages, and I could use my Congolese language to live in Rwanda. And on either side, now you have people who work on the Congolese side and live in Rwanda, and you have people who work in Rwanda and live in Congo, but there's a constant movement of people from one of the cities to the other, so it's very interlinked.
Fluid.
Yes.
And so what were you measuring in terms of government accountability in each city, and how did they contrast with one another?
Yeah, so I was looking at what causes a government to act and what causes a government to provide services, you know, to its people. Is it simply because like they have to, or is it like an underlying, you know, like political motive? Yes, and what I found is that, like, so how I did this is I looked at the election process and what causes people to vote for a specific candidate, and also post-election, how do people hold a specific candidate accountable to the promises that they made during the electoral process. And what I found in Rwanda is that they have something, it's a binding commitment. It's called imihigo, and it's from the Rwandan tradition, which is that when you come into the public office, you take a public oath to the people that voted you in, and you say that in X number of years time, like in a year's time, I will do X, Y, Z, and that is your promise to the people, and you are evaluated throughout the whole year, and at the end of the year, government officials who are like slightly higher than you actually evaluate the promise that you made, and they give you a score up to 100. And usually how it works is that 80 and above, that's a good score. It means that you are like well on your way of fulfilling your promise. And I can't remember where like 50 and like 70, somewhere that just more like you need to work harder. But then
same with our scores here.
Exactly, and then below that you actually need to step down. So that's how on the Rwandan side, like
so they have a really strong government accountability.
Yeah, they're very strong.
And then on the Congolese side?
Yeah, on the Congolese side, I found that it was a lot more unclear, in the sense that there was actually a disconnect between the central government in the capital city and the provincial government in the local government in the province that I was dealing with. And for example, like during elections, on the Congolese side, the town that I was in will be holding local elections in October, and they had, I think, 64 candidates running for 4 positions. Wow. And I went and asked people, why are you voting for a specific person? And it will be that he brought water to our 2 houses when like there was no water, and like he's like and he shows that he cares about us, but it is less fluid in terms of, in the sense that
once they get into office, it's
they don't
unclear.
necessarily have to like stick to
Follow
the promises. Yes, as opposed to Rwanda, where it's like you get into the office and you have a year to prove yourself. In Congo, it's more of like, what can I do to get in the office? You know, like, do I need to give people like free bags of rice, and then I get in the office, and then after that no one really follows up with you. One of the other things that I found was that on the Congolese side, because I was asking, how do you fund the projects that you have? You know, why is there no water? Is it because there is no money? And it was interesting to look at the tax collection method used on the Rwandan side and on the Congolese side. So in Congo, every year the local government collects taxes, and it takes the sum of the total taxes collected, it sends it, like the total number of money, sends it all to the central government, and then the central government sends back 40%.
Right.
Who knows how long that will take. Whereas on the Rwandan side, they collect the taxes, and then the taxes are not sent to the central government. Instead, they are directly used to fund projects locally. So one of the things that they were using the taxes was to build a new city hall, as well as to build 2 roads that like in the city that had been like on hold for a while. So they used the taxes collected this year to build the road and the local hall, whereas on the Congolese side they were still waiting for money to be sent back from the central government. So
it's a much longer turnaround process, and it's unclear if the money goes directly back.
Yes.
And in terms of how government accountability has been in reference to the DRC or Rwanda, how it's been obscured or underreported in mainstream media, has there been something that really sticks out to you in that?
Yeah, I think so, and especially looking at the Congolese side, where a lot of time, like, I believe that most people know the history of the Congo. Like, we had a dictator, and then rampant corruption, and in the 90s we had the Congo War and the second Congo War up to like the early 2000s, where we had as many as like 5 million people who died during the war. And especially in the eastern part of the country where I was doing my research, we have constant rebel conflicts, you know, in the region. And I think that a way that this has been underreported is looking at the rebel problem and the constant conflicts in the region as looking at that as the reason behind the mismanagement of the city that I was in. Whereas when you actually look at it, it's not necessarily the fact that there is a lot of insecurity based on the rebel groups, but that the fundamental structures in government do not exist.
Accountability structures
do not exist, that they are just not there. And in my opinion, like, whether we have a rebel problem or not, it
should be the government responsibility to at least set up these structures.
Yes, and so that is lacking. Yeah, that is lacking, and until we have them in place, we won't see the results. Even if we have peace, which, I mean, for the past 2 years there has been relative peace, but everything is still disorganized, yes.
Wow. Well, this has been so interesting, Colette. Thank you so much for sharing your research with us, and I look forward to reading the whole product in your thesis later this year.
No problem.
This has been On the Map, Off the Radar with Colette Bishogo from Harvard University. Bye.